Hello viewers, here is a Lasko box fan. I believe this would be from late 80s, early 90s perhaps. It has the older Lasko name on it, and let's take a look at the informations. It is model E20739. Type 1, style SL-SS, 2.2 amps, and I'm not exactly sure what that is. There's also some more information stamped into the tag here. It just says the same thing. Oh, actually, no, it's got a date code on there. 1988 to 89. So, I don't know if that's picking up on the camera or not. There it is. So yeah, it's from the late 80s. This is another Habitat find. I spotted this in the back of the area where they'd taken the donations, and they hadn't put it out yet. And the store has been a hit or miss, as I think most of them are, in terms of how helpful the employees are and so forth. But I took a gander and found an employee and asked him about it, and he was kind enough to not only put down what he was doing immediately, but take it out and test it and price it right then and there. So that just goes to show it's worth asking when you see stuff. Anyways, this is one of those fans that, while it's not necessarily monetarily valuable, I tend to think it kind of has a place in every fan collector's collection because it represents an era in manufacturing where there is a shift in mindset, because the mentality used to be, let's build a product that's so good, it works so well, and it's built so well that a consumer will choose it over a competitor. And it shifted from that mindset to, let's make something so cheap that people will buy it and buy it over and over again, even if it quits, just because it's so cheap compared to everything else out there. And that's what this was of the time. And so this would have been like the equivalent of the 3733, for instance, today. I don't know exactly how much these sold for, but I believe it was less than $25. So it would have been cheaper than the Lakewoods of the time, I think. Certainly cheaper than a high velocity fan or something like that. And what's interesting though about this, and this is really the difference between the situation of American manufacturing today, or I say American manufacturing, American corporations today, and American corporations 40 years ago. There's a difference in the greed status, because this still works 30 years later. And you know what? In 30 years from now, it's probably still going to be working. Whereas the stuff we have today, it's designed to quit. It went beyond, let's just make this as cheap as we can, to let's make this so that it quits. And then people buy it again just because it's cheap. And so we've really kind of fallen to a tragic situation now with these American corporations manufacturing things in China and putting planned obsolescence into the products and so forth. Anyways, this video has gone off the rails into a discussion it wasn't supposed to be. This is just supposed to be an initial checkout video. Anyways, it does have a polarized bent plug. Okay, now it's a little bit less bent. Polarized plug labeled LMP. I can't tell if it's showing up on the video. LMP. It's upside down. I don't know, it's blurry. And there's that logo over there. And one of the things that kind of made these box fans famous, if you will, is the motor. The motor is made of plastic. And so that just, it goes to show that they made everything as cheap as they possibly could, down to, you know, omitting the small amount of metal that a motor housing contains and using plastic instead. But what they didn't do is make it so that it's just a total piece of garbage. Yes, it's cheap. It does not perform as well as other models that were out in the day. It did not perform as well as its predecessors did, but it worked, and it was affordable, and it moved air, and if you took care of it, it was going to move air year after year after year, decade after decade. And there's plenty of these around still. They're not anywhere near extinct. They're all over the place because they just work. So anyways, I've rambled on long enough. It's time to plug this thing in and see it. It's actually in really good condition. There's no broken slats on the guard. Guards aren't that yellow, and the paint isn't even that jacked up. I don't think this has very many hours on it whatsoever. Let's start off on low. I don't know if that was picked up on the video or not, but this draws so much power it actually flickered the lights a bit. Now this is noisier than, say, a 223 for instance. Even a third generation, but I think that's just because it's got a faster low. It's moving a decent amount of air. It's not bad at all. And it's running very smooth. It's not shaking. It's not vibrating. The hub actually looks like it's pretty well balanced and centered. And this is not a fragile plant, this is a plastic plant. So the fact that it's moving this even as much as it is goes to show just how much air it's actually moving. Even the airs are circulating over here and moving this plant. Alright, let's go up to medium. Really is moving a good amount of air. It's moving more air than I remember these moving. Still no shaking, no vibration. You can feel it's ever so slightly out of balance, but not by much at all. It's a good blade. And the aerodynamics are pretty decent as well. I think it moves quite a bit of air for the noise level. Okay, let's go to high. It's very close to tipping over. Listen. Yeah, it actually does have slots for feet. I don't think it's going to go over, but it's very close. You know what? I think this is actually surpassing a 223. That's really moving a strong breeze. And you know what? It's not that loud either. That does not at all disappoint. At all. Cut it off. I'm sure this has never been oiled. And yet the bearings, I'm tired. The bearings spin like they were just out of the factory yesterday. Do the startup sounds here. We'll start off on high. It has a startup sound, but not like I remember. Perhaps I'm thinking of the wind machines with the 7-wing blades, were the ones that really had a good startup sound. Okay, medium. That was pretty good. The switch needs to be cleaned. But if that's the horse that's wrong with it after all these years, that's nothing to be concerned about. Okay, here's low. So there's that, a vintage Lasko box fan from 1989. I just don't think these are going to be running in 30 years from now. The motors are just not built for it. But these, even though they were intended to be as absolutely cheap as possible, they were still built well enough to work year after year.